Welcome to Keeping Wealth Wise, a YouTube channel where we explore the rising trend of multifamily offices in India. And we are going to use the expertise of Rajmohan Krishnan, the founder of Entrust Family Office out of Bangalore, one of the pioneers in the space, to help distinguish some of the most foundational questions around the role of a family office beyond wealth management and the kind of services that a true MFO offers to its clients, and what kind of clients should consider a family office at what stage of their journey towards wealth creation. We'll dig deeper into some of these questions with Rajmohan's experience. Welcome, Raj.
Hey, Ashutosh, thank you. Thank you for, this interview. In fact, pleasure.
Pleasure is all mine. So, Raj, why don't we start with the rising role of the family office beyond wealth management? I mean, what do you think are the trends that have led to this change? Is it just a linguistic change that the wealth managers are using as a label, or there's a genuine new need in the marketplace which the wealth management firms are not designed for?
So I would put it this way. It is yes and no. In India, family office is still a very nascent kind of a business. It's emerging, and we are learning from the best practices from the West and from many other countries. In Asia, particularly Singapore, China, a few other countries have got again evolving in terms of good family offices. Now, India is about 10 years old. It is as old as Entrust came into existence. And even today, if you look at blue-blooded family offices are very less. Of course, there are some good single family offices in existence. And all of us are together learning and approaching this in a very different perspective. And definitely there is a need because when you look at wealth management as a kind of sector, the alignment of interest is very much missing in the wealth management business. So you need somebody who is an extension of the family to handle the affairs of the family, be it investments, be it any other area which the family requires support and assistance. So a family office is very critical to meet the needs, just not the investment needs of the investor, but of course the lifestyle needs of the investor. So it is very much relevant and it's gaining relevance over a period of time.
So, Raj, as a follow-up, I just want you to elaborate a little bit on two of the aspects you mentioned in your reply. One is, can you just draw out the trade-offs or distinctions between a single family office and a multi-family office for those of us who may not be familiar with the space? And more importantly, what did you mean by this alignment of interest? I mean, why would a wealth management firm not be aligned to the client interests?
Okay, so let me give you a perspective. First of all, a single family office is set up when a promoter either exits his business or comes into a kind of a windfall wealth and decides, and particularly the wealth is exceptional, meaning in terms of it runs into several thousands of crores, then the needs to manage the money, it's just not managing the investments, but could be charity, could be the other areas which the investor is, looking to engage, it could be a kind of a running an enterprise, it could be setting up of a few companies to run, or investing into a lot of unlisted investments, which needs constant monitoring and also mentoring these entities. And so what happens is when the wealth is exceptional, when it is large, the ticket sizes are very large, then one is you can afford to have a team for yourself. Number two is you need sector specialists in the organization, and also you need just apart from investments, You need even asset class specialists. Like typically, it could be real estate. It could be. I know family offices which heavily invest into commercial real estate. So when you are talking about investing a few thousand crores in terms of commercial real estate, you don't. You need what do you say, experts, not only to just buy and what do you say, manage these real estates, but in terms of understand how you can rent these out. You need lawyers to probably do the drafting of agreements. You need multiple layers of organization.
Specializations.
Yeah, absolutely. And typically, even when it comes to private equity, when a large family is investing into if it's a Series A or a Series B or a Series C kind of investments, it could be running into several hundred crores in terms of investments. So in India, I don't want to take the names, but at least you have at least five, six very large families which own substantial portions of some of the unlisted companies. And this can't happen unless and until you have your own setup where you have a CEO, you have a CIO, you have multiple sector specialists to understand this section. Like typically, if you're getting into a what I would say a company which is into retail, unless and until you understand retail, you will not be able to invest and follow up on other investments. So typically, I would say a single family office is for very large formatted investors. I can quote a name like, for example, Mr. Premji from Wipro, the chairman of Wipro, is what do you say, is one of the largest family offices in India, single family offices in India. So those kind of clients definitely need a single family office because they have multiple interests, not only just in terms of investments, but in terms of the foundation and the philanthropy, what they do. Whereas a multi-family office, it's completely different. It can, this is basically for clients who are anywhere between 50, 100 crores plus. It can go on to about a few thousand crores, but where the clients very clearly don't want to have an organization, don't want to have a hassle of managing people, don't want to have a hassle of running a enterprise and keep what do you say, recruiting, hiring and firing people. They tend to resort to multifamily offices where a family office uh, deals with multiple families, such families, but at the same time be extremely cautious in terms of not overdoing it by managing too many families. Again, it becomes a run of the mill kind of an offering. So it has to be very select kind of a families where you can manage and do everything for the family, which a single family office is capable of doing.
So multifamily office is a more accessible form of the single family office for those whose needs may not be as sophisticated as somebody like, say, Mr. Premji. But certainly the wealth is of an order where there may be enough complexity for it to require specialist attention from multiple kinds of specialists.
Absolutely. And the second question, what you asked, this alignment of interest. It's a very
Yeah.
interesting. It's a very pet subject for me because the interest was formed with the basis of alignment of interest because we clearly felt that there is a misalignment when it comes to large formatted organizations. Not to blame these organizations because they have got a business to run. There is a definite need for growing their business. It's a balance sheet, it's a P&L driven kind of an organization. And
Yeah, and that has been the convention of the industry. I mean, everybody has been following it for years. So it's not like
abs-
they're doing something new.
absolutely. And basically, they will be aligned to the goals of their organization. And always that goals may not align with the interests of the clients. Like typically, an organization comes up with various product opportunities, various, what do you say, format in terms of products. Some of them may not needed by a typical client because the client could come back and saying that I need very simplified kind of a product opportunities, which can be in fixed income and equity, and not more than, like for example, there are organizations comes out with lots of structured products and which may not be the need for a typical client, and the risk may not permit to probably invest into these kind of opportunities. So and in the fee structure, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
As an organization, as a family office, we work purely on a fee based model where the clients pay us a fee, a retainer fee for managing all his affairs. Whereas a typical wealth management firm, though they sometimes they talk about fees, but predominantly works on a product based kind of a fee structure, which they make as a distribution fee from the clients.
So what you're saying is that the compensation of these firms is based on what they recommend to the client rather than on a basis of what the client's interests are. And therefore, they
Absolutely.
may at times recommend something where they make more money rather than something which is just right for that client's risk profile.
Absolutely. And basically, this is due to the balance sheet P&L pressure.
Yeah, yeah. Great, Rash. So that draws out the distinction between the family office world and the wealth management world. The the follow-up question to me on this would be, is there really a way to recognize a true multifamily office? Because there may be a case that it can be used just as a slogan, as a label by a wealth management firm to say that we are offering the family office service. How does one? What are the one or two tests you will apply on an entity to recognize whether it's a genuine family office or it's just somebody who's using it as a marketing gimmick?
So when you evaluate a family office, the first thing, what most important thing is what you need to understand is who are the people behind it? What is the background? What is the purpose of this organization? What is their vision in terms of an organization? How do they make money? So what is the fee structure? Okay, and that's the first most important thing you need to understand. Number two is what is the eventual goal? Like what? Like typically, I find and why this is very important to deal with this is I find a lot of family offices raise capital. So when you raise capital, how aligned or how what do you say? How completely close to a client you can be, meaning in terms of the offering. Like typically, when I always believe that if you take money either from a private equity or from anybody for that matter, you will always be on a treadmill. You will always tend to probably work for them and more than the benefit of the client. So typically, I would recommend somebody if they are looking at selecting a family office, they should they should look at a boutique family office. They should understand how many clients do they manage, what is the kind of number of people they have, what is the kind of quality of people they have, like in terms of experience, in terms of what do you say, their industry experience, which all firms they have worked for, what is the kind of uh, the skill sets they bring to the table, and what are the areas, different areas they bring to the client's benefit. Like typically, a family office has to have a real estate setup to manage to buy and sell real estate for a client, to advise them from time to time in terms of his real estate holdings. Number two is they should have a compliance setup where they need to have legal people to take care of the maybe a very complicated need may be taken care by a third party lawyer or a specialist lawyer. But from day to day, there'll be a lot of agreements to be vetted. There could be lease deeds which needs to be drafted. There needs to be some formats which needs to be filled and sent. There needs to be some contracts need to be vetted. These are some of the things which you can't keep going to a third party lawyer. One is it definitely needs, it consumes a lot of time. Number two is you need to keep paying every time you need to go to a third party lawyer. So a family office needs to have some of these in-house. Now, what is the kind of accounting services the family office offers? Do they have the right kind of chartered accountants to manage? Do they have understanding of taxation? So every aspect of the client needs, if it comes to kind of a concierge, like typically they understand what do you say, taking care of small requirements, like it could be a legal headship certificate, it could be kind of a change of name, it could be even very trivial as what do you say, getting your driving license renewed. Do you have skill sets to take care of this seamlessly without the client being hassled of going to a kind of what do you say, a government organization, or you'll be able to handle all this very, very seamlessly for the client. So typically, an organization which has broad bandwidth, skill sets, what do you say, very, very senior folks managing this. These are some of the very, very important things to identify a kind of a family, a multi-family office.
Raj, the way I processed your reply was that there are two things that one needs to look for the traits of a true family office. One is the set of competencies and to what extent they are in-house and integrated into our offering, the taxation, legal, along with, of course, the investment-related competencies. But you mentioned briefly about the way they are charging, the fee structure. Can you elaborate a little bit about what should one look for in the fee structure to ensure that it's a true family office?
No, actually, see, normally what happens is there are two types of clients you encounter with. One is purely investment-based family office, where majority of your work will be investment-based. So you will have a large portfolio. You need to manage this portfolio, and all the allied services will be maybe more, maybe less. It then to charge these clients is not much difficult. Meaning it's a kind of an easy thing because you charge a percentage of the assets as a fixed fee towards managing all this. And typically, all the other services, what they require on a day-to-day basis, comes a kind of an add-on when you charge a kind of a consolidated fee for managing these investments. But where the challenge lies is when you don't have assets, so much of assets to manage, and when you have other areas like typically very real estate heavy family offices, or whether private companies heavy family offices, where some of them run small and medium industries, where they have multiple affairs to be managed, but there is no investments to manage. So there it becomes extremely difficult to price the client in terms of to offer these services to this client. So typically, the easier part is have a kind of when it comes to a pure breed family office, you have a fixed kind of a fee structure where you have a percentage of the assets charged to the client and manage all his affairs, and which is from day to day legal affairs, whether it comes to kind of evaluate certain private investments and manage certain kind of a real estate, what do you say, related areas. Everything comes into this. But when it comes to standalone mandates, like typically somebody wants to buy a large kind of a portion of real estate, then it can't fall into the category of what do you say, a kind of a fixed fee structure, where a separate engagement letter is done with the client, where the fees is charged specifically for that particular opportunity, and with mutually agreed fees which is charged, and then the service is executed. That's how it's done.
So it's a combination of both of, yeah. So it's a combination of both a flat fee as well as a pay-per-use kind of a model where you,
absolutely,
but essentially the difference is that you are not getting paid based on the kind of products you push, but you get paid on a very transparent, fixed basis for whatever you're offering.
So the very word you used, push, is just not there in family office. So there's nothing called push. It is basically understanding the requirement of the client. You become the extension of the family. Then it becomes your money. When you deploy your money, how much care you take, the same amount of care which you take. It's the buy side. It's not the sell side. So yeah. you represent the client and you do everything.
You're on the same side of the table.
You're on the same side of the table. So you take care of every aspect of risk, every aspect of return, every aspect of the black swan events which could take place, and protect the client from that.
Terrific. So Raj, that brings me to the last question that is the logical extension of this, is that what kind of families should consider moving to a family office, a multi-family office to start with? What are the early indicators? When should one start planning for it?
So typically when there are two or three types of families which can definitely plan. One is people who have retired from their corporate life. They made a kitty which is worthwhile to be managed properly. It needs to
What
be
would what would worthwhile mean in this context? Where would you say a cutoff lies in terms of the numbers?
for a family office per se.
Yeah.
See, there are two aspects to it. One is pure investment management. Okay. There, anybody who's got about 10, 15, 20 crores can definitely approach an advisory firm like us and ask us to help them to manage their investments. But if the needs are much more than just managing investments, okay, it could be managing their taxation, it could be managing their real estate. They would have, over the period of time, they would have invested in multiple private companies, which needs to be managed. Their taxation needs to be managed. What do you say? They would have they would be representing a few companies in the board. Then there is a lot of compliance issues which come in, so that needs to be managed. So when it comes to a full-fledged family office, then the ticket size will definitely need to be more than 50 crores.
Okay.
In fact, and I would put it this way: nothing less than a 50 lakh fees, you'll be able to offer all the services to a client. So that means then anywhere between 50 to 75 crores has to be the assets which the client has got, which can factor in, even if you factor in about 0.7 to 1% in terms of fees,
The fee.
that will take care of
That
managing
will
all this
justify.
seamlessly. Yes, because I'll tell you why. Because you don't hire what do you say, people with 5 years and 10 years experience. A family office predominantly has got people with 20, 25 years experience, and these people don't come cheap. And
Yeah.
they've seen cycles, market cycles. They've seen they've managed clients for the last about 20, 30 years. They understand how well and how with the kids' gloves these clients has to be managed, and they would have seen various market cycles. So these are very, very important when you hire for family office. And if you need to what do you say, recruit and retain these people, you need serious monies. And unless you have a 50 to 75 lakh ticket as fees, you can't offer a comprehensive family office. You can definitely offer an investment advisory service for these clients, but if you need to offer a comprehensive family office, you need that kind of a ticket.
So a potential fee payment of 50 lakhs to 75 lakhs per annum is what we're talking about, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And that would be justified if that forms 1% of the total assets to be managed.
Yes.
Which means you're looking at a number of 50 crores upwards. So Raj, one additional question to this is that a lot of the services that you spoke about were in the realm of financial and adjacent areas like taxation and legal and all. Is there a role for the family office in personal matters, like somebody with a complicated succession issue, or somebody having a special child to take care of after they are gone? Does family office step into those areas, or
Absolutely. Absolutely, the family office, as I told you, it's an extension of the family. So whether it's related to forming a private trust, what do you say, writing a will for the client, or taking care of some of the nuances in terms of having kids having special children, or kids going through some kind of a bad marriage, and some of the assets need to be protected. All this comes under the realm of the family office. They work very closely with the client family to make sure that their interests are protected. But I don't think all this can happen overnight. It's a function of the time what you spend with the family. The family understands you better. The family understands the firm better. And over a period of time, they develop more and more comfort. And they start, I would not call burdening, but they start entrusting with absolutely more and more, what do you say, of their affairs. And over a period of time, you end up managing the entire thing for the family.
So given the rising complexity of our lives and the rising net worth of people, are we looking at the family office becoming a more and more mainstream choice for a lot of families?
I very sincerely believe, and I've been talking about this in various forums, that family office is here to stay, and it is going to be a kind of a very big business. But at the same time, you will also find what do you say, dearth in terms of talent, in terms of not very many family offices can succeed, because it is not a one-man show, or it can't be what do you say, a wealth manager just resigning his job and starting a kind of a family office. It needs to be an amalgamation of brains. It needs to be a pool of talent which comes in from various, like typically say Entrust. It's got some of the best talents in the country in terms of whether it's money management, whether it, whether it's to be accounting, it's to be taxation. It's got one of the best talents in the country. So it's taken time to build this and constant search in terms of adding talent to the pool to offer bespoke services for the client.
Terrific, Raj. I think that's a good place to end this conversation. And I think today we got a very good sense of the width of a family office's scope of services. And I think in subsequent conversations, we can dive deeper into individual areas to see what kind of nuances are there for people to think about.
Yeah, thank you, Ashutosh.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Great,
you very
Raj.
much. Thank
Look
you.
forward to more such conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.